All right, I got a good one for you.
Let's hear it.
Well, I don't know if it's a good one. You tell me if it's a good one.
I'll be the judge of that.
Hey, agent calls an underwriter. I got a trucking account you're going to love. Underwriter says, really? Agent says, yep, 20 years in business. Underwriter says, okay, yeah. Agent says, no losses.
In 20 years?
Nice, says the underwriter. He says, experienced drivers. That's great. Excellent maintenance. Even better. He says they're profitable. The underwriter starts to believe. I didn't think this day would ever come. He says, even better, they're shopping because they're growing. The underwriter's like, amazing. I didn't think this day would ever come. He says, what are they growing into, by the way? Hazardous materials, he says. The underwriter sighs. I knew it was too good to be true.
But there is a market for it.
There is. That's right.
Welcome to the podcast that accompanies the DOT Analysis platform, where we discuss real-time trends in the truck insurance market and explore answers to the questions you are not allowed to ask. I'm Ray.
And I'm Ben. And this is The Inside Lane. All right, so we're jumping into those questions you're not allowed to ask. We put that in our intro in every episode.
Yep.
But we don't necessarily in every episode frame it up as questions, although that's kind of implied in the background. So I think in this one, we're going to dig into some specific questions, the ones that we term, obviously a tongue-in-cheek term that we phrase as the questions you're not allowed to ask. Of course, we're asking them, so we are. But talk a little bit about, share your perspective on that. Why do we call them questions you're not allowed to ask?
Oh, man. You'll have to hold me back because I could go on for hours about this, but I won't. The reality is that there's been so much opaque unknown in this industry and specifically in the markets that are represented in this industry. Mm-hmm. I've been around long enough in this world to have heard so many different questions and so many different hypotheses where it was an underwriter or an agent or a marketing person, and they would, say things like, if I only knew such and such, then I'd be able to make this decision. If I only knew, that this was happening or the reality, or if I only knew that this speculation was actually accurate. I feel as though it's accurate. I can feel it in my gut. And it has to do usually with how a market is growing or shrinking or how their appetite is changing and shifting. If you could answer those questions, there are so many overarching strategic decisions that you could make. And the first time that we realized that you could not only ask those questions, but actually have answers to those questions, that's what the epiphany was. It was like, oh my gosh, I was never allowed to ask this before. And I can. So that's where that comes from.
Yeah. And that's part of the tongue-in-cheek nature, right? Obviously, there's no one telling you can't ask that question. Anybody can ask the question. It's just who asks a question that they know there's not an answer to.
Right. Yeah. If you can't know it, then
it kind of invalidates the question. Yeah. So the reason we're asking these questions is because we can finally parse through data and pull out insights and answers that were never before available. And it is wild to see. It really is.
And there's one more piece of that too, because one of the things that I've had people, especially with new customers who onboard, they say things like, they look at, an insurer's book of business and they get down to some really hard-hitting evidence of something in the data. And they kind of look around and they're like, is this private data?
Right.
How do I know? Like, am I allowed to see this? Like, I've literally had people say those phrases to me.
Right.
And I have to explain how this works and how the data comes about and how we extract knowledge and conclusions out of it.
Yeah, really good point, because that's the other half of the you're not allowed to ask
Yeah.
idea and concept there, framing of that, is that it does feel almost like data that you shouldn't be able to see. I mean, when we say we're opening an
Yeah.
insurance company's book of business, something about that just sounds,
Crazy.
yeah, unnatural, right? And
Yeah.
yet, and yet it is public data.
Yeah.
It takes powerful algorithms and math in order to build these views, but it is possible to see. I like to use the term derivative data or derivative views, right? The underlying data
Yeah.
is public data, but yet the insights that are coming out and the actual answers are not something that you can just go out and get.
Right.
So an interesting concept, that idea of derivative data, but really powerful.
And it's applied industry knowledge. You have to apply your industry knowledge to the data. And if
Oh
you
yeah,
don't
for
have
sure.
that, you can't possibly take that raw data, which arguably everyone has access to. But number one, the data is massive. Number two, you have to apply that industry knowledge. And number three, you have to merge all of those concepts together to have a meaningful picture come out and get the answer to the questions you're not allowed to ask.
Yep. Yeah. That is an important clarification. There's some people that see the dashboard in DOT analysis and think, well, first of all, they say, is this just going to tell me what to do every day? No, it's not.
No, no.
No, it's going to give you clarity of vision. That can sound discouraging. I wish it would just tell me what to do. But the reality is, if it was telling you what to do, it'd be telling everybody else what to do, and everybody'd be doing the same thing.
And that would serve no one.
See, exactly. There's no competitive advantage now. It's the classic, if everyone's special, then nobody's special.
Yeah. What's that line from The Incredibles? If everyone was a super, no one's a super.
Exactly. Yeah. And so even though like your first response might be to think that way, the reality is that's not what you actually want. And so it should actually be reassuring to know it's not going to just tell you exactly what to do. You're going to take your industry knowledge, your specific operation, but now instead of looking through this tiny little circle at what's in front of you, you're just opening up your entire windshield. You're looking across the entire spectrum. So now you're driving with full visibility.
Yep, absolutely.
And you can make so much better choices. Your periphery opens up immensely. Is that a good way to think about it?
Yeah, it is a good way to think about it. All the things that you could feel on your periphery, and you would have bet that they were there. You can now prove that they were there. And and a couple of things that you thought were and aren't, you go, oh, I'm glad I have clarity on that. I always thought that was there, but it's not. So clarity is a wonderful thing.
All right. So the questions we're unpacking today, high level questions, the main ones that come from our customers all the time. And so that's why we're going to unpack these. The first one we're going to look at today. How does Northland compare with Great West?
Oh yeah. What a cool one to ask.
Yeah. So if you want to get our dashboard pulled up here.
Yep. Here we go. You see that?
All right. So which one do you want to open first, Great West or Northland? And then we'll look at the comparison.
That's a good question. How about Northland? We'll do that.
Okay.
All right. So I got Northland pulled up here for those of you on Spotify and the audio version only on Apple Podcasts. I'm on the market intelligence dashboard in DOT analysis, and I just opened up Northland's Insurer as the insurer, which aggregates their multiple writing papers to a single view. So here we go.
Yeah, so let's just do a quick overview of what their market picture looks like. And then we're going to do that head to head against Great West. So read off our stats there for total policies.
All right, so Northland's got a total of, let's say we're pushing 19,000 policies here. In the single unit world, they're pushing 13. We'll call it 12,700. Non-fleet, they got 5,300 approximately. And fleets, they've got, call it 650. So they're growing overall, which is really cool, but they're down in the fleet segment, I'll note.
Yeah, so just list off those percentages.
So up overall by 7% in the last year, because I got my time filter set before now compared to the year ago. So up overall by 7%. Single units, they're up 6%. Non-fleet, they're doing handily, they're doing good in that. They are up in non-fleet by 12% year over year.
Wow.
And in fleet, they're actually down by 7%. So it's interesting because the increase in the number of filings for single unit and for non-fleet is kind of masking the decrease in fleet that we're seeing in that overall percentage of 7%. So it's fascinating to be able to see that.
Yeah, well, and even though we're not asking that as a specific question, that really brings it up. That is one of the points of being able to ask, or the questions you're not allowed to ask.
Right.
That's an example of it. Is I want to understand how Northland's doing, not just overall. I want to understand
Right.
within these specific segments, because that brings so much more clarity to the picture.
Yeah, and you can distort metrics so dramatically if you just say, "Hey, how many policies do they write this year versus last year?" Well, if you just did that, you'd draw entirely different conclusions, and you would probably draw wrong conclusions without a doubt by making the mistake.
All right. So can we set up our analysis this way, Ray? Can we actually open a second tab, market intelligence tab, and let's just put Great West up? Because what I don't want to do is lose the comparison by looking at all of Northwest and then going. So let's just go through each component of their book and do it side by side.
All right. So I got Great West open here. I got all the rest of the filters the same. I'm looking at now compared to the year ago. And yeah, this is a totally different picture. So Great West, we're pushing, we'll say 38,500. We'll round it a little bit.
Yep. So about double the book of business by policy.
Yeah, by policy count. Yep. And they are down 5% overall. So that's definitely different than Northland. So single unit they're at about 21,000 policies. That's down by 4%. Their non-fleet is at, call it 14,500, so 14,500. That's down by 6%. And fleet is at 2,700 approximately, and that's down by 3% from a year ago. That is the most interesting to me, is that fleet business, 2,700. If I go back to Northland, look how many more fleets Great West has, or I should say in this case, look how many less fleets Northland has. I wonder if people really realize that. I don't know. I don't always connect with that every day when I'm thinking about Northland versus Great West.
Yeah, so we'll unpack that in a second for sure, because that is a distinct difference.
Yeah. All right, where do you want to go next?
All right, well, let's just go across the screen here and hit renewal rate and relationship duration, just so we have that as a comparative as well. They're both solid for sure.
Yeah, so let me just go through that real quick here. Great West renewal rate, yeah, both of them solid insurers on their renewals, above the market average. Great West renewal on their first year, across the board, averaging 70% first year, 73% second year, 76% the third year, and 82% the fourth year. That's really strong. That's great.
Yeah, it is.
And Great West does great. So good products, right? Here's Northland. Northland, 71% renewal rate on the first year, 74% on the second year, 75% on the third, and 76% on the fourth. So definitely solid, definitely fantastic to be able to make those two different comparisons. Great West, I'd say overall, edges out Northland a bit on that current renewal rate. It's a little bit higher with Great West, especially when you get to that longer end of the relationship on that fourth renewal. I'd say 82% is significantly better than Northland's 76%. So for what it's worth, I find that pretty fascinating there.
All right, so I don't want to take the time to go through all of the cargo types, but just looking at cargo types and radius, obviously general freight is that largest category. I see a good number of other things there. I looked at this ahead of time. You can see if there's anything that stands out to you. To me, they look fairly comparable as far as cargo and radius.
Yeah.
No specific things that stand out as like huge appetite differences there.
Yeah, and we are looking really broad right now. I mean, I have the single units, and there's sometimes what I try to do is remove those single units because there's new authorities in there and such small operations, it distorts the picture sometimes. But yeah, not a lot to pull out until we zoom in, I'd say, at this point.
All right. So just scroll down there and let's just double check the safety. I think they're both writing really clean business as well.
Yeah, so I'm on Northland right now. I got a lot of green ISS. I have a tiny bit of yellow, and I have a tiny bit of red. I got a lot of insufficient where it's not calculatable because we have a lot of single units in there. So that's Northland. Let's look at Great West a second. Yeah, very similar story. really good underwriting appetites for clean, quality motor carriers. And I'd say that tracks with what a lot of people's gut probably feels, which is Great West, Northland, they write quality business. They do good
Yep.
underwriting. Absolutely.
Okay, so now let's look at the head to head because that's what we have in our won and lost business chart at the bottom of the screen there. So, how are they doing head to head against Great West? We're looking overall book again. Well, I guess you're on Great West screen, so same thing. What are they doing head to head against Northland?
Yeah, that gets so interesting. I got both sides of the ledger here. Great West took 428 policies from Northland. Great West lost, though, 860 policies to Northland. That's kind of lopsided.
Yeah, Northland's doubling up on Great West right now.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Now, the next question, this is what happens. I always wonder: are those fleets? Is that non-fleet? Is that single unit? Because that paints a whole different picture. So I don't know if you want me to go there, but that's where my brain naturally goes.
But Ray, I'm not allowed to ask that question.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so let's do it. Turn on fleets. Go to the filter and turn on fleets. Let's see, because we saw Great West has a lot more fleet book than
Right.
Northland does. So what's the head to head on fleets?
All right, so I'm looking at Great West. I just set my filter to just look at fleets. I can see that Great West took 28 fleets from Northland, and Great West lost 30 fleets to Northland.
So basically dead even in the fleet market.
Yeah, that's interesting. See, knowing the questions to ask, asking the questions, and having the tool there to be able to answer it, that changes my perspective of what their head-to-head matchup is.
Yeah. All right. So we just did that on fleet. Let's switch because we saw that Northland is really strong in non-fleet. So let's keep the single unit out, but just look at non-fleet and then see what that head-to-head looks like.
Yeah, that's a great one to ask. So I'm looking at Great West, 2 to 5 and 6 to 9. So I kept out the single units. I kept out the fleets, 10 or more, and I'm just looking between 2 and 9 trucks. Great West took 138 of those from Northland over the past year. And Great West lost 319 of those. So there you go. Great West they're losing to Northland in that non-fleet business.
Yeah.
And both of them, as we saw a minute ago, have very similar underwriting appetites. So
we always be careful. What this platform doesn't tell us is the why.
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. And sometimes I gotta be careful to not jump to those conclusions too early.
Or to not assume the why.
Yeah. Assuming is dangerous. I've learned that.
Leave open to the range of possibilities that's there. But all things being equal, if appetite is equal, if the time frame is equal, if the motor carrier segment is equal, and Northland is tripling up on Great West in taking that non-fleet business, I don't know. My immediate hypothesis would be they've probably got a better or cheaper offering.
Yeah, that is interesting. It may be price. Then I would jump into at the state level because I love looking at this map and being able to see, all right, what does that mean geographically?
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we don't have time to go through all 50 states right now. That'd be a fantastic thing to dig into in detail later or jump into that on your own. I do want to try one thing though. Let's just adjust our date range here. Let's just stay in the non-fleet, for example.
Okay.
Let's go to our date range though and just look at 6 months just to see if that picture changes from a year ago. Is that trending or not?
All right. So you want me to say now versus 6 months ago?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm on Great West book.
Because we were essentially a 3-to-1 ratio, Northland to Great West. So now let's see what that looks like if that ratio is holding in the last 6 months.
All right. So now versus 6 months ago in the 2 to 9 trucks, that type of unit count, I can see that Great West took 54 of those away from Northland, and Great West lost 136. There you go.
Yeah.
That's holding.
It is holding. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, it really is.
Okay. Tons more we could dig into there, but that's a really fascinating view at what's happening head to head against two of the biggest and most talked about players in the market right now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fun. Yeah. What else?
All right. Next question. everyone's wanting to know Geico. What's happening there? So here's the broad question we want to unpack. What impact is Geico having on the truck insurance market? And how are they doing? It was a huge splash a couple years ago when they started to enter the market. Everybody knew that they were sucking up a lot of business, but not a ton of clarity, at least from what we've been hearing, on exactly what that looks like and what that means. So why don't we open Geico's book and see what's happening with Geico?
All right. I cleared out my filters. I'm on market intelligence. I'm going to throw in Geico here. I'm going to use the logical insurer because they do write on more than one paper. And here we go. I am looking at Geico's book now across the country. And yeah, if I would have looked at this 2+ years ago, I'd be at zero essentially. But today I stand at 26,000 policies. That's up by 46% overall.
Year over year.
Year over year, yep, because I'm looking at now versus a year ago. And single units, I'm at just about 18,000, 17,882. That's up 58% year over year. Non-fleet, I'm looking at, just about 8,000 policies. And fleets, I'm looking at, call it 600. It's a little less than that, and that's down. So, yeah, they are right in business. Absolutely.
So looking at the bar graph next to that, though, really highlights the amount of their book that is 5 units or less.
Oh, yeah.
That's almost their entire book.
Basically, everything they do is 5 units or less. Absolutely.
Now, I'm sure that a lot of agents who are in this space know that anecdotally, know that through experience, that they're not placing fleets with Geico. But if all you're hearing is the noise of what's happening in the industry and how much attention they're garnering, that might not be as clear. It doesn't necessarily match the amount of noise that exists out there.
Yeah, that is a good way to say
it. They are so weighted on that low unit end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Now, a couple years ago when this started happening, we were very interested to see, do they know what they're doing? Are they going to be able to hold on to any of this business? So it is really interesting when we look at that renewal rate. Now, we really only have about 2 meaningful years worth of data there, because that's really the only time period where they've had meaningful number of policies.
And because generally everyone knows that these policies run year on year, I'd say we have really solid first renewal data. I wouldn't say the second renewal is really as solid as I'm comfortable, drawing as much conclusion out of as that first one. But I will note both are tracking in the positive same direction. So first renewal, look at that. 53% above the market average of 49.
Yeah.
Wow. I did not expect that, I will admit. When Geico came out of the gate, I did not expect them to have a solid first renewal rate like that and hold the business.
Well, Ray, we can actually validate or look at how much data went through that second renewal. If we adjust our time filter to 2 years ago, as of 2 years ago, that tells us how much business they had on their books there. And we can see in our relationship duration how much of that was new business. So let's look at 2 years ago.
All right. So I'm on now. I'm going to 2 years ago. Oh, yeah. See, that's not that much. That's made it to that second renewal compared to what they have in their book. So, yeah.
But it is 1,200 policies. And you can see from the relationship duration, almost all of that is new business. So that was new business 2 years ago, which means that is primarily the group of policies that went through that second renewal. So we got 1,200 policies that converted at, what was that percentage there?
63% on that second renewal. That's great. And hey, I like it. And it's trending where I want to go. I like being cautious, and I like to prove things out a little bit longer until I really start relying on it, because their first renewal, hey, I'm going to take that 53%, I'm going to trust that now. I'm going to wait to trust what they do on the second renewals and see how they perform there until we have more than about 1,200 policies that went through their second renewal, because they got a pretty big book, 26,000 policies on their books now.
Yep.
Approximately.
Okay, so let's keep going here with the Geico analysis. We said, what impact are they having on the market? So it looks like they are dramatically impacting the 1 to 5 unit market.
Yes.
Relatively minimal or essentially no impact on the rest of the market. So let's go see where that business is coming from. Who are they taking those policies from?
All right, I'm going to scroll to the bottom here, and oh yeah, here we go. As I would have expected, and in my gut, of course, Progressive. They're taking a lot from Progressive. Interestingly enough, here though, look at number 2. Look who they're taking their second most amount of business from. Great West.
Yeah. Now we are looking just over the last year. If we open a year compared to 2 years ago, will that actually show us 2 years worth of taken
let's
business?
do that. Let's look at Geico's 2-year taken. There you go. Look at that. It's still Progressive at the
How many policies from Progressive?
18,000. That is a crazy amount. They basically, if they have 26,000 policies now, and they took 18,000 of them from Progressive, as basically just a swapping out for Progressive's book. Great West, though, look at that. 1,200.
We have had some agents telling us
Oh, yeah.
that they write a lot with Progressive, and they are really having a hard time right now.
I had a customer a couple months ago call me and was basically giving me, he was the principal of a particular agency down south, and he was giving me the story of what's been happening with his book and the shift that's happening in the market and how much of a visceral reality that was for him. It was moving from Progressive to Geico, and it was presenting some unique challenges.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So somebody who had an experience like that might say, well, I don't need a platform like this to see that. I already know that's the case. And to some extent, that's true. But being able to understand exactly what that looks like and exactly where the risk lies, and by risk, I mean what impact it's going to have on your business, this is really clarifying. This is that opening up the periphery of your view to understand what's really happening. So I want to do a couple other things here to point out, Ray. So can we go to the filters? Let's just go back to now compared to a year ago. Just get our default view in there for Geico.
Got it.
All right. Go to the map, hover over the map so that the numbers show up on the map. So not only are we saying that Geico is impactful in 1 to 5 units, look at the map and tell me where Geico matters geographically.
Oh, yes. See, this is incredibly enlightening to be able to see this, because I would have assumed, without having access to this, that they'd be taking up a lot of that business that's in California, because a lot of people know about what happened in California. What was that, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, with the whole switch from independent contractor to having your own authority? I would have thought they'd be eating up that business. Look at that. They are not. They're a nothing burger in California.
Yeah.
They got a couple policies there, probably because people moved there from across the state line, and who knows what's going to happen with those. They are big in Texas. They are big in Illinois. They are big in Indiana. They are big in Ohio. They are big in Florida. They are big in South Carolina. There's a couple other states out there as well.
But the states you just listed are the only states where they have more than 1,000 policies.
Right.
And numerous states that they have essentially not 11 policies.
Right. Montana's got 10 policies. I mean, does that mean they're a player in the state? I don't know. It's a big state geographically, but there's not a lot of people there. But does that mean there you go. Use your situational awareness. If you're an agency or you're an insurer that's focused on Montana, then you can draw some really good conclusions there.
All right. So one of the things we love to do in this tool is follow threads. So here's a thread that I want to follow, or a thread I want to pull on and see where it leads. All right.
All right.
They are obviously the major player in Texas, or their book is primarily located in Texas, right?
Yeah, that's a huge percentage overall of where their book is located.
Right. Over 5,000 of their policies are in Texas. That's their main market. So what I want to do is understand what does the landscape, the insurance landscape, look like in Texas? So now I want to take this view where we're not just looking through the lens of Geico, because we already looked at who they're winning and losing business from overall. Now I want to just say, let's understand what the insurance landscape looks like in Texas. So can we actually switch over or open in a new tab, the Market Explorer window?
Yeah, absolutely.
And let's just pull up all of the motor carriers with an auto liability filing in Texas.
All right. So I'm going to do show only in Texas in Market Explorer for active DOTs who have auto liability. And I'm looking at 33,000 motor carriers. That's a decent amount.
So the graph on the right-hand side there is going to give us the weighting by insurance company. So here's what I want to see is who's actually competing in Texas. And we've got Progressive is number one on the list, not surprising.
Yep.
Geico, who we know is taking a lot of Progressive's books, so that basically a lot of that is probably Progressive business there. Who are the next few in that list?
So I got, I didn't expect this, but I got Clear Blue, and then I have Great West, and then I have Northland, Canal, Cimarron, Century, and then the list, of course, keeps going down.
Yeah.
But Berkeley.
Okay, so here's what I wanted to point out to you, and I'm glad that you said that you weren't expecting this. This is why pulling threads is so fascinating. The number 3 player in that key market is Clear Blue. So I never would have known to look at that without seeing that here and understanding that they're one of the key players in one of the key markets. So now I'm curious, go back to Market Explore or Market Intelligence and look at what Clear Blue is doing.
All right. I'm going to.
Just before we open up the page, to set the context, we looked at some key players, Progressive, or not Progressive, but Great West, Northland, Geico.
Yep.
Geico is growing a lot. The other one's relatively flat, not huge changes. I want to see what Clear Blue is doing. So go ahead and open up Clear Blue.
All right. I got Clear Blue compared now versus a year ago. They're up. Wow. That's cool. 4,700 policies. That's up 117% from a year ago.
Yeah.
I did not know this was happening.
So go to the map and see where their growth is.
Oh, yeah. Look at that. They are up massive in Texas. Now, talk about pulling threads. The next thing that comes to mind is, who do they take that from?
Yeah.
In Texas specifically. Can I do that? Do you mind?
Yeah.
I'm going to do I'm in all states right now, but I just want to know these stats for Texas. So I'm going to pick just Texas, scroll back down. And who did Clear Blue take that from? Well, it's not Geico. They're further down in the list. I got that they took 63 policies from Geico, so they're in there, but Accredited and Progressive. And something I've never seen before, Agricultural Worker Mutual Auto Insurance Co., 100 of them. So
yeah.
Look at that. They're a growing player in Texas for sure with 3,000 policies in Texas. That's almost at the size of Geico.
Yeah. So a very key player to be aware of, and I know I've talked to a few agents in Texas who are aware of Clear Blue and are starting to work with them, but they are obviously a significant player in the market right now, making a huge splash and a big difference. Texas being the second largest state of total policies that exist, just behind California. So also interesting to see Clear Blue is not just competing in the 1 to 5. They actually have a decent number of policies, a percentage of their book anyways.
Oh, yeah, they do. I didn't even realize that.
Now, mostly just into small fleet. Doesn't look like they have many large fleets, but they're non-fleet, larger non-fleet and smaller fleet. They actually have a decent footprint there.
Yeah.
So that'll be a very interesting development to watch.
Yeah, it'll be fun to track and see how that develops over time. Very cool.
But if you're a key player or you've got doing a lot of business in Texas, Clear Blue is definitely somebody you're going to want to be aware of and keep an eye on.
Yeah, for 100 different reasons.
Yep. All right. I got one other thing I want to look at on market intelligence. So Texas is the second largest state for policies behind California. So we go back to Market Explorer. I just want to take a look at California and see what's happening in California.
I'm back on Market Explorer. I had Texas open. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to go and select just California here. So show only California on those active DOTs with auto liability, and Progressive is the largest. And again, I don't live in California and I don't think about California a lot. So this is a surprise to me. Look at that. Second largest player in California, Great West.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting to see how different that list is from Texas to California?
Geico's nowhere to be found. Look at that. Clear Blue's not. I wonder how far down I have to scroll before I see Clear Blue. Oh, maybe they don't even do anything. And okay, here we go. They do something, but look at that. Almost nothing. 271 policies in a large state like California. Way down the list.
So isn't it interesting to see even in the two largest markets by total policy count, how different the insurance weighting is by company.
it's really good to know that because I talk to people that are in different regions of the country, right? And everyone has geographic realities about their business, whether they're the insurer side of the game or they're the agency side of the game. And if you are in that, southwest region of the country and you've got clients, you got customers that are in California and in Texas, you have to put on a totally different strategy. You have to put on a totally different hat if you're going to understand the market realities of those two places. Absolutely. Just it shows that without a doubt. Good to have that knowledge.
Yep. All right. So one other thing that I want to do, can you add to California? Let's just add the selector of Red ISS or ISS
Oh,
Inspect
sure.
as a filter, because I want to point out as well or look at how significant the insurance company weighting is when we add a variable like that and how much that shuffles the deck.
Oh, yeah, that shuffled the deck a lot. So I'm in Market Explorer looking at just California active DOTs with an auto liability filing, Red ISS, and the top of the list, South Lake, then Universal, then Progressive, then here we go, MS Transverse, got an InsurTech in there, accredited National Transportation Insurance, Benchmark, Knight, and then the list goes on and on.
Yeah. So fascinating to be able to do that as well, not just see who's a player in a certain state or region, but to see how that motor carrier profile. I mean,
Yep.
we're understanding and unpacking what appetite actually looks like by specific characteristic. So, I mean, we could get lost in this for days doing this, explore by cargo types and exploring by all other things. But
I had a customer call me and say, he called me just to say this. He said, Ray, it's like I'm in Candyland every single day, because he was just traipsing through all of the knowledge that's in DOT analysis. And it is kind of like that. You're pulling threads. It's like you're going through the Candyland board and you're just finding great stuff.
okay, should we do one more fun one though? What clear ISS? We just added a new filter here recently to Market Explorer.
You want to stay in California?
Sure. We can now filter though by operation. So let's pick a fun operation and just see who's doing that. What operation type do you want to look at?
Before I click on that and before I do it, let me give you my 30-second take on this, because I love this. And here's why. It's because everyone that's in the industry knows there's a difference between cargo and operation. But of course, what does the government do? Well, they blur the lines on that reality. So they don't quite understand the difference between your operation type and your cargo. And so often those concepts are mixed, but pulling out the difference between cargo and operation type is a beautiful thing, because they appear similar at first glance, but they are not. So
let's look at the list of operation types we have and then explain what you mean by that.
Well, I'm actually going to start here. I'm going to go to the cargo, and I'm going to go to the cargo as reported by the motor carrier, which everyone knows is on the MCS 150. Take a look at this. I can see on here liquid and gas. Right. But you know what? That doesn't speak to. I'm going to go to operation now. That doesn't speak to the fact that you could be a tanker liquids operation or a tanker dry bulk operation. You take cargo and you mix in the concept of the operation and it just gets fuzzy. But it's wonderful when you can differentiate between a cargo type and an operation type, because they're definitely different.
Okay, so you want to open one of those? Let's just look at tanker liquids, for example, or a different one you want there and see.
Sure, let's do that one. Let's do tanker liquids, and we'll do show only. I'm in California here, and let's see who's writing that in California. Oh, look at that. Again, wouldn't have expected it, but there we go. Old Republic, then Concert Group, then Great West, Arch, Progressive, Berkeley, Guide One.
Yeah, so just really interesting to be able to look at how specific characteristics like that, whether it's cargo, whether it's fleet size or operation type, how that adjusts the insurance weighting and therefore is a reflection of the appetite in that region.
Yeah, absolutely great to be able to see that.
Okay, well, I think that wraps up the time that we have for today. Those have been some fun questions to explore, though. Keep letting us know what you're thinking, what you're interested in, so that we know what hard-hitting questions we can unpack in the next episode. And, consistently we get from our clients who are looking at these dashboards, but are still so heads down, just doing their job, pursuing their business, whether it's going after business as an agent, whether it's doing underwriting, and still want to know, hey, can you go through and do some of the work of finding the interesting stories that are happening and bring to light the key things that I need to be aware of in the market? And so that's our desire. That's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah. So for all those folks who, have been asking these types of questions and who are combing through some of this on their own, and then they reach out to us and they say, well, what about this and what about that? That's the reason that we love doing this on the podcast and answering some of these questions, because I know that if some of you guys are asking these and have taken the time to reach out and ask specific questions, I know that there's other people that just don't have the time, because like you said, Ben, people are heads down, they're running hard, they're working diligently, and being able to provide some of this information at such an easy, accessible level is great to be able to do for our customers. And we love doing that. All right. Well, you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. We'll see you next time.